people struggle with this idea of how do I cling to faith when a really seriously big deal, a life-altering thing that I've been asking God for does not turn out the way that I'd planned. He does not answer the prayer in the way that I asked him to. And this was a big life-altering thing. And all of you have experienced that in some way. So, John, how did that work for you? How did you actually cling to faith when the prayer didn't get answered the way you wanted it to?
I think for us, we had been through suffering time and time again. Not the same level of suffering, but different things that we struggled with. And I think the first time that we struggled the most was with infertility before Eli was born. And it was a long stretch, years, that we had lost a baby and we wanted another one. And that was the time where we kind of decided on what our faith was going to look like, and we did that together. I used the plural because that was a thing that we went through together. And so while we did it, it was our individual faith journey. We did it together then. And then when Eli had his accident, and we didn't know if he was going to live, faith was the only thing that God was the only one who could do anything for our son. The doctors had done everything that they could. And then 3 weeks later, it was a long 3 weeks on our knees, but 3 weeks later, we found out that it looked like he was going to live. And that was a great answer. And so we knew that God was going to fully heal him. That was just part of the process, right? Like you go through this bad thing, and you pray for his life, and we have his life, and we're so grateful for that. And it doesn't stop there. God's the only one who could restore his health. And we worked and we prayed for that long time, and the summary answer when we didn't get that prayer answered was, what else would we cling to if we didn't cling to our faith? And I think when we were new to faith, there were lots of things that that had happened, because we've been through at least some trials, maybe not suffering, but at least some trials. We knew that God was the only one who could actually give us what we were looking for. And so that's why we clung to faith, why I clung to faith.
We thought because he had saved him that he was going to live. We thought that meant, well, he's going to heal him too. He's going to be 100% better, because that's how God will prove that he is worthy and mighty, and that that's just not it's not always the case. He is still good. He uses our situations for his glory, but it often doesn't play out the way we think that it should, or the way we want it to.
Yes.
Trusting him is ultimately what it boils down to, because if you don't trust him, then you're going to look for something else. But he is the only one who can sustain you through something like that.
Trust him to what end? Trust him for what?
Trust him to carry you through whatever happens, because it might not be good. It's not always going to be good.
Steve, many people in our church got to see Peggy as she struggled through and fought, her cancer, and she was one of our just ones, and was so inspiring to so many people. And because of that, so many people prayed. We prayed that she would get well, and she didn't.
I prayed also. I know God heard me, and I know I had certain wants. But after time, I realized my wants, his plan was to provide me with my needs. And those people that you mentioned about people praying for Peggy and for me from all over the state. And her faith, how did I cling to faith? Well, after I got the diagnosis, came out of from the surgeon, and he told me what the diagnosis was, glioblastoma, stage 4, the very worst possible. I got angry. I got feeling why. And I took a little walk, and then I came back to myself and said, "You've got to fight this. You've got to be there for Peggy." And that was my focus, and stay strong in my faith, and know you're surrounded by those people that love you and care for you, and to be all I could for her. And over the next 18 months, she influenced so many people. You mentioned the Just One video when we went in our 7-day series back before Easter, and Easter was one of her most favorite times of the year. And that Just One video touched so many people within our church campuses, and not only there, online, and I shared it. And when she went to the doctor's offices, she just influenced people with her smile and her positive attitude, never quitting. And when we were down one time in the early part of June of 2019, it was almost coming to like the year anniversary of her being diagnosed, she received a package from the Men of Nottoway of handwritten notes and letters that they had seen her Just One video, and they sent that. And Peggy was very, and I both were down at that time, and that came in just when we needed it and picked us up, and how her life was impacting those she'd never have ever met, and maybe never would meet. And they just kept getting stronger and stronger, even though the battle was going on. She started declining. And towards the end, my focus was on her. And one time you came to the house and you asked me how I was doing, and I said, "I'm doing fine." You said, "You got a good game face, David." and my game face was starting to get worn down. And a few days before she passed, Good Friday night, I went to just say goodnight to Peggy. She was laying in her bed, sound asleep, about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I got in bed and started to doze off. And right about midnight, she said these final words: "My work is done, but there's more to do, and y'all need to do it." I got up out of bed. I thought she'd gone, and whatever, she was still breathing. And then I got back and thought about that. And over the last several months now, since she's been gone, I've thought about those final words of hers. And it's like, I thought she was I thought God was holding her in to help others. It was for me. It strengthened me, because if I cannot carry her banner forward now with those final words, her work is done, but mine is not. And none of us out here, when she said y'all, that's everybody. And I do know that when you pray, God hears your prayer. I know He knows your wants, but His plan is that He's going to meet your needs.
Christy, it's interesting when Steve talks about had to be strong for her. He had to be strong for her. And that's how we often feel when we're fighting for somebody we love. But how did that, and I know you felt that way about Noah, how did that strength, how did you convert that after he was gone? What was the faith journey like for you?
I was angry for quite some time. It wasn't fair.
It isn't fair.
I've yelled, I've screamed. You know, we went through 6 years of infertility. Went through 6 years of just coming to a conclusion that it was just gonna be me and him. That was hard.
That was your resolve. You just resolved.
That was it. Bill actually had to be the strong one for me a lot of the time through everything with Noah, because I just didn't think I could do it. But I prayed and prayed, and I guess we were convinced with every ultrasound of seeing him that it was just going to get better. And it never did. after he passed, we had our a Facebook page that we had created for him, for prayers for him. And after he passed, I started having people that I didn't even know reach out to me. One couple, or two people in particular, who I'm actually friends with on Facebook and I've never met them in person. It was a mom, and her daughter was pregnant with a boy who had the same condition as Noah. And they were trying to decide what they were going to do, because you get the decision from the doctor of, we can make this, we can terminate, or we can keep going. And, I kind of talked to her of, there's no wrong decision, and, here's what we went through, and that particular two people who reached out to me, we actually still stay in touch with each other. And she now has a little boy who still has the same condition that Noah had, but has survived, and he's almost 2 years old, which is incredible. But the strength I found was that he was able to reach people, even though he never was actually able to be the person to reach people.
How do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile that with some statement that God is good? How can that be true?
I believe that we were given a dream to have a family. And if God gave us that dream, then God also gave us the corresponding abilities to make it through that journey. We believed that there was going to be victory for us, and we understood that came with a battle, and that battle was for our mind. It was an emotional battle. It was a spiritual battle. It was a battle over our words and our attitudes. But that was the valley. That was where the battle was, and we understood that, and we knew that we had to get through that valley to get to victory, and that was our journey.
So what would you say, Tricia, what would you say to someone who was in a real struggle today with something they've been praying for, that it appears God is not going to answer the prayer the way that they wanted to, and they may face some kind of real tragedy? What would you say to that person today? Because they're here today in church, and they're trying to figure out what faith is going to look like for them if they don't get what they're asking for. What would you say to that person?
Don't give up. Continue to ask. But if it doesn't happen, keep going. Don't stop. God is still going to do something good. God is still going to use it. God is still going to work through the situation. It will be hard. It will not be fair. It will require strength that you don't have. It will, but it will, you will see where God's strength comes in your life. You will be able to, you will get closer to God as you allow Him to work through the situation with you.
Steve, the scripture we're looking at today, Paul says that he prays to God to remove this, whatever this affliction is, and God's response to him is, "My grace is enough for you." Would you say that has been true in your journey of loss? Or how would you say it?
In my grief, I have gotten, in my weakness, I am stronger because of Him, because of people that have prayed and people that are still with me and for me. And because of Peggy, it's still in my heart.
Bill, how about you? I mean, someone who's here today kind of struggling, what advice would you have for them? When it comes to faith, if they were asking you, and some of them are asking, what would you say?
For us, it was kind of we always kind of called it our prescription. Just basically what we needed to do to fall in line with being more than a conqueror and understanding that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And for us, the prescription was really simple. It may sound cliche, but reading more, praying more, controlling your association, what you listen to, just listening to positive things and being able to control your words and your attitude. That was the biggest thing for us, just being intentional about just making those changes, just one little baby step each time, each day, just to be able to control that attitude and understand that it's not our strength, but we're putting everything in His hands.
Was that as easy for you to live as it was for Bill to say? He rattled that off, and I know he believes every word of it.
He does.
I know he means every word of it.
He does.
I love what you said about controlling your attitude. Man, that's hard. That's hard for me. So, how about you?
In the moment, it's not as easy to live. It definitely is easier to say, but taking it day by day is really the only way to even get through it. I mean, you can't look at the whole picture and think, all right, well, here's how everything's going to end. I got to get through this. It's never going to work. But constantly just feeling blessed and thanking God for everything that He has given you, no matter how you feel the outcome should be and how it actually happens, changes your perspective of, this is a horrible thing to, this is horrible, but somewhere down the road there's going to be a reason that we went through all this.
And you really did practice that? You really did practice I'm going to be thankful today, I'm going to...
Mm-hmm. I did. I mean, even every week, I did my weekly and monthly. Actually, towards the end it was weekly, but I did my monthly pictures. Each month that I was along, it was me and Noah's little selfie, and I just thanked Him for everything I actually got to experience with Him, the movements, even though it wasn't anything He could feel, but just everything was. Mm-hmm. I was thankful that I actually got to experience it.
You each had a part to play in helping each other through it. It seems like the two of you really leaned into your individual strengths during that. Would that be fair to say? And
neither one of us took a day off, if that makes sense. It was either if one of us was down, the other one was strong for each other, and we never had a day where we were both just down. It's quite unique and an experience like no other, where we leaned on each other and we were each other's strength.
Do you feel like, in a strange way, that the experience made your marriage stronger?
100%.
Absolutely. Okay. Without a doubt.
I mean, we even made a promise to each other from the day we found out at 20 weeks that this was never going to tear us apart.
Yeah, and the communication, just the ability to be open, authentic, and transparent with each other, it's been like that ever since that day, where we didn't have it before.
Really?
Yeah.
So you actually made an explicit, we're going to have this conversation promise, no matter what.
How are you feeling today? If you're not feeling down, what's wrong? What can I help you with?
John, I know, because you and I have been friends a long time, we've talked about this, I know that's true for you and Tricia. Somewhere early on, you made this pact together. Would you agree that on our wedding day, we all made this pact? It was complete theory.
Total theory.
But what you did in that moment, where there was no certain outcome, you sort of made that pact, but now it wasn't theory anymore. Talk a little bit about that.
when we first saw each other after the accident, and Tricia explained to me what happened, it was very clear that she was concerned that I was going to be angry with her. And so that's when I knew that not only was our son's life on the line, but our marriage could be on the line. And I couldn't do anything about my son's life being on the line, but I could make sure that we affirmed that decision that we had made. And so we decided that this wasn't going to come between us. And there's so many things that Bill and Christy said that are so true. I think, especially in hindsight, having some years with this, and also being a little bit different, not better or worse, I don't think, but a little bit different in that this has been a thing where new challenges come up all the time, and to take it day by day, and to have that gratitude for the things that we do have, and the time that Christy, when you talked about the time that you did have, and all the blessings that you had, that you wouldn't trade those for the world. I wouldn't imagine. I know we wouldn't. And the time that we did have in Eli's first few years, when he was just a growing, amazing, healthy young kid, I mean, we wouldn't trade that at all. And to be grateful for what we have today. And when the days are down, it's so true. I heard somebody say not too long ago that when our own faith or our own positive attitude is low, we need to borrow somebody else's faith. And I think that's what happened in our marriage relationship. Is most days we had a few, and they were extraordinary days because it was only a few, where we're both like, this is too much. We're not going to make it through the day. But even in that, I think both being down at the same time, it helped us to both get back in a better place. But it's almost miraculous that the day that Trisha's down is a day that she can borrow my faith, and the day that I'm down, I can borrow her courage, and so that's what it was like.
Maybe that's one of the ways that God's grace is sufficiently lived out.
There's undoubtedly,
yeah.
God provides His grace, sometimes directly to us, many times through our relationships, and especially our closest relationship. Like Bill and Christy said, and Steve, the church, the people that came around us. I mean, it's just incredible. Just people and still to this, his accident was 18 years ago, and still today, people come around, people that we don't know, and they just come around and they either encourage us or strengthen us or tell us about how our story has affected their lives in a positive way. They tell us 18 years later. I still meet people today that tell us that they were praying for our son, and I met them for the first time this year. Mm-hmm. And so there's things. Christy talked about a reason, and I think people there are definitely things that God brings that's good from bad things. I think that we also, when you go through something that's tragic or any kind of suffering, well-intentioned people don't always say the right things, and I don't believe that when people say, hey, well, everything happens for a reason. It's actually, I can't find that in Scripture. And what I do believe, and what I know that everybody here has experienced, is that God has made something good that would not have happened if the tragedy didn't happen. There's no way that Eli would have the impact that he has on people today without the accident. As his dad, I'm never going to be okay this side of heaven until I see a better perspective, a heavenly, maybe a full perspective, of maybe God's perspective. I don't see it today, of all the things that God has done. And I'm never going to be okay that the tragedy happened, or that he has to go through on a daily basis what he has to go through, not on this side of heaven. But I do know for sure that there are things that miracles that wouldn't have happened if his accident didn't happen.
Yeah, I guess I would definitely have to say that for Christy and I, that was probably the biggest giant that we've ever faced. Yeah. And because of that, because we've overcome that, we, defeated that, and we've come beyond that. That we've never really seen anything since then really give us any kind of trouble, just because we compare everything to that massive giant that we've already beaten. So the rest of them fall a little easier.
On that same note, there are people who have been through, there's degrees of trials and there's degrees of suffering. We've met a lot of people over the years who have been through each of those degrees. And what it seems that the deeper the trial or the deeper the suffering, the better perspective we have on everything else. And so I think for us, a huge thing that's happened in our marriage is like, we just let stuff go that doesn't matter. Like,
Amen.
Does this have anything to do with, it's not life or death. It doesn't have anything to do with the sustenance or the sustainability of our family. So it doesn't matter. So the fact that Trisha left water in the sink, we don't fight about stuff like that. Like we just don't fight as much as we, and it's not that we fought a lot, but we just don't let things bother us that used to bother us. And I think that's one of the many blessings that comes out of going through trial together, is the things that don't matter. They just become much clearer that they don't matter.
Well said.
I live alone now, but I'm not alone, because you're surrounded by so many people that have been praying and friends. And I'll share with you, I said, what's the fuel that keeps me going forward in life is my faith, my family, my friends, and Peggy's final words. My work is done, but there's more to do, and y'all need to do it. And that is a directive she gave me 3 or 4 days before she passed. And I shared, it's okay to, I see Peggy's picture every morning. She has her smile and a thumbs up. And I go up and say, how's the day going to be? And I sometimes say it's okay to ask why. It's okay to cry, but I'll never say goodbye.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here and for being so bold and raw.